The Premier of Alberta has promised to protect pristine viewscapes and the backyards of Albertans from industrial wind turbines. And with that, the province has released a new map showing where these turbines will be permitted. But it's created even more controversy. That next on Wind Concerns. Hello, I'm Mark Mallett from windconcerns.com, and I'm joined now by Angela Tabak from the Riplinger Wind Concerns Group. Angela, welcome to Wind Concerns once again.
Good morning, Mark. I'm being bombed by a wasp as we speak. It's a beautiful day in southern Alberta, and I can't resist being outside, so I'm out here.
Yeah, you're enjoying your pristine viewscape out there by Waterton.
I am, I'll be honest.
Yes, and you have good reason to rejoice. Your group is pretty excited because the province again has released a new map showing where the zones, protected areas would be in the province, and your region falls within that 35-kilometer buffer zone because you're in front of the mountains.
Yeah, that's absolutely true, and yeah, we are rejoicing. We are grateful for that. There's no doubt about that. In actuality, this wasn't really rocket science. TransAlta never should have proposed this project this close to the mountains. It shows right there the blatant disregard and disrespect that these companies have for Albertans and for our culture, for what we have here and what Alberta is known for. So it wasn't rocket science, but indeed we are grateful that we have this result, that our area will be protected. At the same time, you know, having I've lived all over Alberta, in both major cities, Edmonton, Calgary, as well as growing up in northern Alberta and parts of southern Alberta as well. And I recognize the beauty of every landscape that we have in this province. And I'm not just saying that. That's not just words coming out of my mouth. That's every area that I've lived in across the province has its unique, beautiful viewscapes that we all need to respect and show appreciation for. Your eyes up to the trees. So we're feeling it for those around the province that have not seen the same results that we have here in this corner.
I know that you and I and other wind groups, we've reached out to each other because we're all going through the same nightmare where we've woken up and discovered that, and I think you put it well, these wind corporations have absolutely no respect for people, for the farms that they've built, the acreages they've owned, the lands that they have had sometimes for generations, and they're just going to go plunk these industrial turbines that will reach, in some cases, over a fifth of a kilometer into the sky. And with all of the impacts of that, and without any consultation to us, it's just a done deal. They sign the leases, then they announce it, and the AUC, from what we have seen, rubber stamps it. Yep. So, Angela, we felt hope, however, when the Premier came out and in her press conference, she talked about protecting the pristine views, the resource of beauty in our province. And she had this press conference where she came out and she said, look, you can't build a wind turbine in front of a UNESCO heritage site. You can't put a turbine the size of the Calgary Tower in your neighbor's backyard, and we're going to protect these pristine viewscapes. And all of us were so excited because we felt like we were being heard, that the Premier was finally listening to our concerns and recognizing that one of the most beautiful treasures we have in this province really is our tourism. It's an over $8 billion industry. And that everywhere you go in this province, whether it's the rolling plains of southern Alberta, whether it's the mountain views where you are, or whether you're in the Lakeland region where we are up in northern Alberta, it's really stunning country. And it's one of the reasons that I moved here from Saskatchewan is I really missed this beauty. But then all of a sudden, An unfolding nightmare began to happen when this map came out, Angela, showing it, and you can see it in the yellow. That's the areas where the province has said, well, that's our buffer zone. That's what we're going to protect, are the mountain views in front of Banff, Jasper, and Waterton National Park. And it left the rest of us going here in the rest of the province saying, well, wait a minute. What about the pristine viewscapes for those of us who live on the river valley up here, or in the Peace River country, or in southern Alberta where there is these beautiful open plains? And what about our backyards? And so we're starting to see what seems to be, and I like your take on this, is the Premier backpedaling, Angela, on her promises?
I sure hope not. Looking at this yesterday when it came out, I had to kind of think, okay, so is there more coming? Is there more, maybe in the ways of environmental assessment and new regulations around that? Are we going to be looking at the riparian areas a little more carefully and putting buffer zones along all major riparian areas? And Saskatchewan has that in place right now. I really hope that there is more to come, because the fact is, the Premier called this moratorium, which I think 100% was justified and needed. And those of us like yourself, Mark, and our communities who have been in this fight, we have seen firsthand the problem with the process when it comes to these projects coming into communities. And you've described a little bit of what that problem is. We've seen it firsthand. And so no doubt in my mind that moratorium was needed, but we can't be calling a moratorium every few years. I mean, this is not going to happen again. This is our one chance to get this right, to be very thorough, and to get these regulations and these processes tightened up. They were just so loose, which is what has allowed these problems to come into the province, is because the regulations were just, there was holes all through them, and guidelines that weren't being enforced, and all kinds of things. This is the one chance for this government to get it right. And I give them kudos for having the courage to take a look at the situation and say, we've got a problem. We're going to put a pause so that we can get this right. Now let's get it right. We've got to.
And you're absolutely right. I mean, this is what we have heard as well constantly, is that you've got politicians have been telling us, as well as people who've gone through this, saying the AUC is almost virtually rubber stamping everything, completely overriding municipalities. I mean, in our own discussions with councilmen in this area, we've got 3 different councils in this area who are going to be impacted. The councilmen have told us it doesn't matter what we say as a municipality, the AUC will just override us. And, it has to be said, and I'm going to say it now, it's politically incorrect, but I'm going to say it anyway. If we had, Angela, a true crisis in this province where, we just needed to build wind towers and we just needed to put up solar and we had no other choice, you might be able to make an argument with the AUC that we're going to stick these anyway because it's, it's an existential crisis for this province. But for the love of God, we're sitting on 166 billion barrels of oil. We've already got the pipelines in our ground. We've got all of the infrastructure. All we do is we need to tie in a few more natural gas plants. And this province has its energy security. And energy security means economic security. Because if you don't have energy security, your energy rates go up. That impacts all of your fuel rates. It affects business, what they're paying for electricity, natural gas. It affects people. It causes inflation. We've seen it in Germany. We've seen it in Ontario. And I can't understand for the life of me why, on the one hand, and I'm very emotional about this, because on the one hand, our premier is standing up to Stephen Guilbeault and Trudeau, rightly so, with their carbon taxes and everything. And yet Albertans are being asked, us rural Albertans are being asked to sacrifice our landscapes, our tourism, our lakeland regions, our water, no longer our mountain fronts, but the rest of the province, is being asked to sacrifice this for what? When we have natural gas, and I was speaking, Angela, to a man in the industry who works in the pipeline industry, works with natural gas. He says we can burn natural gas. You have nothing left but water vapor. I mean, we're all for reducing, pollution as best we can, but this idea that we are going to shove these turbines onto our lands for a crisis and ideology of Stephen Gilbeault, a radical environmentalist who is literally dangerous for the security of our country. Yeah. That our premier and our Nathan Neudorf and so on are going to continue down this road. You know what? We praise them for what they're doing so far, but right now we're all starting to feel a little uncomfortable. And I'll let you jump in there because I could probably just go on the rest of the show ranting. Who wants to hear that?
Well, and I don't blame you, but Mark, I mean, you nailed it. It's politics. It's politics. But yeah, when you look at the facts, and like I said, I grew up all over Alberta, and just yeah, we're doing these crazy contortionist moves to try and meet the requirements of, like you said, a very extreme ideology when we could have the energy security that we need and that we should have. And so, okay, fine, fair enough. Looking at the situation, I get it. Many of us would say, just forget about renewables right now. We've got the cleanest oil and gas in the world, and we do. I've had guests here from all over the world staying at my bed and breakfast. Had a gentleman from Turkey a few years ago who talked about his experience working in oil and gas in Alberta compared to working in oil and gas in the Middle East and in Eastern Europe and all around the world, actually, that he'd worked. And the stark difference, the first time he went to a working site, he thought that it was a mock-up site in Alberta, because he said it was as clean as a museum and there was no oil anywhere and there was no pipes laying anywhere. And he thought that they had brought them to a mock-up site of the ideal of what it should look like. And they had to convince him that, no, this is actually a working site. We are pulling oil and gas out of the ground right now. So we, in Alberta, we know what we're doing when it comes to oil and gas, and we do it responsibly and we do it well. But
absolutely,
the fact of the matter is, we're looking at a political situation, and so we have to somehow accommodate renewables. And I'm sitting right now beneath the solar panels on my rooftop. I am not 100% against renewables, but what we need to do is to do it reasonably and to do it responsibly. And my solar panels aren't hurting anybody else. So we have to kind of take that approach, I think. And there's ways that the province can do this better and can tighten things up so that we don't have the problems that we have had continually for the last decade in the province when it comes to renewable projects going up in these rural areas.
You're so right about that, and I concur with that. And Angela, we get accused at Wind Concerns of being pro-oil, and that we're funded by oil. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. I'm doing this on my own dime right now. The time I'm taking this afternoon is my own time, from my own work, from my own family. I'm not earning a penny from a single thing I'm doing right now. And I've had wind corporations accuse me of this. No, listen, it's common sense. We're sitting on oil, and you're absolutely right. The people who criticize our oil industry, they're stuck in 1960. Honest to God, they think that we've got, that these orphaned well sites, they look at this as if this is the ongoing situation. No, this is what we've been left with. But the oil industry now is so impeccable. It's people who haven't driven out in the countryside and realized and looked at the sites. They're so environmentally tight. And if one single bird dies at an oil site, it's an international story. Yeah. Yet wind turbines are dicing and slicing eagles and huge migratory birds. And we've done the stories on the bat apocalypse, and that is not an exaggeration.
Here along the rolling green hills outside of Livermore, wind farms are a clean source of energy, but scientists say those large blades are killing an alarming number of bats, specifically a species that helps farmers remove pests from their crops.
Bats are drawn to wind turbines, and they're saying right now that the turbines are risking the populations. Well, these creatures actually cross-pollinate crops. They're necessary for the ecology. One German study said even insects are being decimated to the point of causing local populations to go extinct. Yeah. And yet, look at this headline from this is the Calgary Herald, and the new report is coming up from the AUC, the Alberta Utilities Commission, and this is the headline that renewables, says the AUC, pose little threat to agriculture and environment. This is why we're concerned, Angela, is because the government has come out, and we know the Premier recognizes the harms of this. We know she does. But you've got the regulator who's going to make these decisions saying, renewables, they pose so little threat to agriculture and environment. Well, I'll tell you one thing right now. The wind turbines going up in our area are almost primarily on Class 2 soil. This is prime agricultural land. We're right on the river valley. These things kill bats, insects, birds, as I've just been saying. For the AUC to say this poses little threat is so tone deaf. It so disregards the current research. I think it's not listening to what you've read the submissions, and you've seen the submissions to the AUC, and what people were saying. If that is the conclusion, what the Calgary Herald is saying, is that the conclusion of the AUC, we are in big trouble, because the AUC decides, and you said to me before the webcast, the AUC is not, it's the government who is responsible and answerable to the people.
We did not elect the AUC. The AUC is not an elected body.
Nope.
They work for Albertans. We, the taxpayers, are funding the AUC. And they need to remember that. We elected Premier Danielle Smith, and we elected all of the different MLAs across the province. They are the ones who, as they listen to Albertans, if they feel the need to enact various changes because of what they've heard from Albertans, that is their right and their responsibility. I could care less what the AUC has to say about this. I don't know how many hours I should have tracked it. I don't know how many hours I spent reading submissions from Albertans all across the province. Not just folks like you and I, Mark, but also from the various different lobby groups and the various different energy proponents, reading their take on it. I spent hours watching the oral submissions. And if the AUC has come out, now, to be fair, I have not read all 80 pages of that document. I have not. That's on my list of things to do next week. But if this is the conclusion that they drew from that inquiry, we got a problem.
Yeah.
We got a problem.
It's really stunning. And I mean, these are the kind of statements coming out. I got to go to this. This is a statement that came out from Jason, not Jason Wang. I just got to get this right. Evan Wilson of the Canadian Renewable Energy Association. And I'd like your comment on this. He said there's something quite powerful about a view where you can see all of the different types of energy in Alberta coexisting with Alberta's beauty behind. To see a pump jack, a wind turbine, and a solar panel, and the mountains is a truly Albertan vista. I'll just let you respond to that right now.
I don't know where this guy lives. La La Land? I don't know. Like, where does he live? Because... Oh my heck. Like, I'm speechless. No. And you know what? Like, okay, you know what? You're going to compare a pump jack. You're going to compare wind turbines and pump jacks. Okay, that's fine. Let's go there. Let's go there, Mark. So, there's Shell gas plant, not too far from where I live. It's up right on the side of the mountain. I lived here for 5 years before I even knew it existed. I didn't know it existed. I'd driven past it. I don't know how many times on my way up to Pincher Creek. But until you actually turn up the road and go up into the mountains, you don't know it exists. But let me tell you, every time I leave my house and I drive 10 minutes, either direction, north or west, you can't really go south because you end up in Montana. And if you go west, you end up in Waterton. But if I go north or east, rather, within 10 minutes, I'm looking at dozens of turbines that are, some of them up to 85 kilometers away. I can see them. There is no comparison. Like, stop with the delusion. That statement, blow me away. Blow me away. Yeah. Absolutely nuts.
There's no question about it. And in fairness, when the oil industry came in the beginning, there were, they would put up generator stations. I think there were people in my own region here who, when the compressors ran, it disturbed their sleep. And I heard that one family had to move out. So we know the oil is not sinless. We've never said they aren't.
Fair enough.
We know they've done damage, but it's delusional to compare a wind turbine that stands a fifth in a kilometer in the sky to a pump jack. Right out the window, right here where I'm speaking right now, there is 3 tanks, and I can't see them. They're behind the trees over there. I never think of them. I don't see them. I don't look at them.
You don't hear them?
I don't hear them. They're storage tanks. The most you'd ever hear would be trucks. But you know what? This is also an agricultural area. So we have farm trucks going up and down during harvest and when they're moving machinery. It's part of life. You cannot compare an industrial wind turbine, especially the people in our area who some houses will be 500 meters. That means they will hear these on windy days, and we've had a number of people say from Ontario and the United States say it sounds like a 747 hovering above your house. Yeah. And then you and I have already talked in another webcast about the infrasonic pulses that are causing animal deformities. We've got a story on that on our website on horses, cattle, and humans who are suffering and winning court cases now against the wind corporations for people who are living up to 15 kilometers from these things because of the pulsations you can't hear, but you can feel. So, in fact, you brought, while we're talking about the idealism of these corporations, and by the way, they're talking about, all the investment dollars coming in. I want to address this because I spoke to a councilman yesterday up here in northern Alberta. He said to me, Mark, we're talking to landowners of a wind project south of you. He says they haven't been paid in a year. And he said, we're talking to the county. We don't think the county there has got a single dollar from it. Well, I know the project he's talking about, Angela, and we've talked to the landowners and they've told us they haven't been paid after a year. And moreover, the renewable energy corporations, they talk about jobs, jobs, jobs. Well, at the end of these projects, there's a guy walking around pretty much picking up dead birds early in the morning so no one else finds them. And then you might have a couple operators who check in here and there. There isn't a ton of jobs. But I thought this was interesting, Angela. The one landowner told me when the construction was going on of the wind turbines, he said all the workers were from Mexico and from the United States. They weren't Albertans. They came from another country. I mean, there's so much deception and lying going, as if this investment in Alberta is going to bring billions of dollars to the province. What a bunch of horse poo. We know oil and gas brings billions of dollars because we export it and sell it. But you can't. I've heard the Pincher Creek project down there with the wind. One of the local people there told me, she's been studying this herself. She says they're exporting that energy down to the southern states, not to Alberta, the Pincher Creek wind farm. Mm-hmm. By the time it gets to the states, only 15% of that energy is actually there. It's all dissipated along the way. I mean, there's such a lack of honesty. And you sent me a couple pictures, and I'll let you comment. This is the kind of garbage we're dealing with these corporations.
This is the garbage. So I'll explain the garbage, and then I'll kind of explain what I think might be the solution. if we have to have these in Alberta, let's get it right. So this first picture was put together by TransAlta, and what it is, it's this visual simulation. Now, what they did was they drove around the area where this project was going to be, and they took a number of pictures, and in some of them they put wind turbines to kind of give us an idea of what it was going to look like. Some of them they didn't. So this first picture is the picture that they took and submitted for Mountain View. Now, I live in Mountain View. Yeah. I live right in Mountain View. And, my husband and I looked at it and we said, where is that? So now Mountain View is pretty small. So we went for a walk and we said, we'll just walk until we figure out where the heck they took this picture from. So when we found ourselves at the very lowest point in the hamlet, we recognized, okay, this is where they took the picture from. And in order for me to get that exact angle, I had to get down in the ditch. So their guy is crouched down in a ditch behind, like on the side of a road, taking a picture saying, you're not going to see any turbines. Well, I've never seen anybody in that ditch before either. So I guess if someone's living in the ditch, they're not going to see any turbines. So good for the ditch dweller, I guess. I don't know. So the second photo I sent you is an actual picture of Mountain View.
Okay.
Yeah. Just a little different, right?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And you want to know
where would the turbines be? Yeah, where would they be in this photo?
Okay, so you see the church there?
Yes.
Okay, so you're looking west. You're looking west towards the mountain. You got the church there, and you just kind of look like if you were to go right behind the church on an angle in a northwest direction, that's where they would all be. And they would all be visible. 47 of them. Like
incredible.
Like seriously. So this is the amount of deception and blatant lies. And this is the quality of work that these companies have been submitting with their AUC applications to the AUC to convince them that, oh no, there's not going to be any real effect on these communities.
Right.
Well, there won't be any effect on the guy crouched down in the ditch, but the rest of us there will be. Like, let's get real. So, like during the inquiry, part of the inquiry was talking about the viewscapes. Right. And unfortunately, they used the word pristine, which a lot of people got hung up on, because if you go to the actual definition of pristine, it's anything that's untouched by man. Well, good luck finding anywhere actually in the province that has been untouched by man, the place was whatever. So one suggestion from it's called the Green Cats report. And what this report did, and I don't even know who submitted it, but Green Cats Renewable is the name of the company that put it together. What they suggested was that Alberta follow what a lot of other countries across the globe are doing when it comes to evaluating valued viewscapes. Okay. And there is a whole process laid out in this report as to how many photos must be submitted, from what angles, from what distance, at what time of day, using what kind of camera. What it does is it brings fairness, it brings consistency and respect back into the process. So rather than TransAlta doing a piece of crap photo from a ditch and it's submitting that with their application, they would be forced to actually present and look at the whole picture, right? And on top of that, the AUC would not be able to just give a stamp of approval from looking at photos. They would actually be required to send someone out to a site visit, which makes total sense to me.
Yeah.
That way there's no deception. You're getting a feel for what's actually going on. You're getting a feel for the community that will be impacted by this project.
Yeah.
And you're able to make a better professional assessment. Now, I don't know. Is the AUC, are they rubber stampers? Are they proud of that? Is that what they want to do? Is that what they want to be known for doing? Or do they want to be known for their professionalism? for their ability to put systems into place that make sense, for fairness and respect. You know, Mark, this all comes down to legacy. And each one of us as individuals, but also as parts of organizations, are working on leaving a legacy to the future generations of this province. And what is that legacy going to be? Is it going to be corruption, deception, lies? Or is it going to be dealing in truth, respect, fairness? Like, you get to pick. And the AUC needs to pick.
Well said. And from what I can tell, we are actually repeating the same mistakes we did with oil, which is going in, ignoring people's process, causing environmental damage. I'm sorry, the AUC is wrong. The environmental harm of wind turbines is so established, and the science is there. Germany's rejecting it now. Ontario's energy minister just came out, Todd Smith, and said the province is paying $6 billion a year for these turbines, and they're moving away from it now into nuclear. So he's distancing himself, while our premier, who's sitting on the world's third largest oil reserve, is wanting to somehow still open the door to these pristine landscapes. And, you know, I agree with you. If the AUC came out, and you can see this photo in the background, this is where I live. I would like to see the members of the AUC come up on this hill over top of the river and explain to me why this is not a pristine viewscape that should be protected. In February of 2024, the government has declared this, the federal government declared this to be a heritage river, one I think of 44 rivers, I think, in the whole country. Wow. This is a heritage site now. This was the river, the North Saskatchewan River, that the traders went up and down on. We have the, you know, if you shop at the Bay, it was based on the companies that sailed up and down selling furs on here. We have the Fort George Buckingham House. I mean, this is a gorgeous river valley. And can you explain to me, perhaps, Angela, why this would not be considered a pristine viewscape according to the map that was released by the province?
It doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to me at all. And what I really got discouraged about when I looked at that map, I mean, again, don't get me wrong, very, very grateful that our area is being protected. 100% grateful for that. Mm-hmm. But what really discouraged me was the blue areas, where that's where the visual impact assessments will be required. No, the whole province needs to be blue. There needs to be a visual impact assessment with every single application, because just like you pointed out, Mark, why isn't your area blue? It needs to be. It needs to be. That needs to be a requirement. Nobody chooses. Now, I understand there are some people that don't have a choice. Nobody chooses to live in an industrial park. You just don't. Yeah. And it's not fair to folks, to anyone, to have this forced upon them. It's like, no, now you live in an industrial area. No, you don't. You live in an absolutely beautiful area that does need to be protected. And at least, at the very least, given a fair shake when it comes to defending what you folks have there.
Well, Angela, I think you're just short-sighted. I don't think you see the beauty of a pump jack, a solar panel, and a wind turbine against a mountain drop back as being defining who Alberta is.
You know, I'm so behind the times, Mark.
I mean, I know you and you know me, and we're not trying to mock, but at the same time, I cannot help but laugh out loud. When I read that, my jaw dropped, and I thought, if this is the best sales pitch we have for renewables, then we're in real trouble if our politicians are actually buying that sales pitch. And we are going to continue to work with the Premier, with Mr. Nathan Neudorf. We're trying to get in the Premier went, after we met with the Premier, she wanted us to meet with Mr. Neudorf. Mr. Neudorf, we're putting out the invitation again. The Premier would like these wind groups to meet with you. We would like to sit down with you and discuss further this idea of pristine viewscapes and protected areas. And, you and I haven't even talked about the provincial parks, but I can tell you right now where they want to site this wind turbine project up here. You would see it from Kihiwin Lake, possibly. You would see it from some of the beautiful regions around you, and you would certainly see it from the town of Elk Point. It would tower over this town that is built right beside the river. And, we could go on and on about all the other wind groups out there. But Angela, I think you've spoken well. I think your idea that every project should have a visual impact assessment, I think is the right idea. Where I'm sitting right now is, and I think a lot of us Albertans are, I know the politicians I've spoken to, is there is a complete lack of faith in the Alberta Utilities Commission right now. One politician who's no longer an MLA said to me directly, he said the Alberta Utilities Commission needs to be disbanded. And I wholeheartedly agree. They're not elected. They're not representing our municipalities. They certainly are not listening to people at this point. Although I too have not read the full report, but from what I'm seeing, the initial response seems to me that they're thinking that renewables are going to be a blessing for this province. And I think there's a place for them, but wind turbines have no place in this province. We will continue to push and call for a moratorium, as useless as that might be. We think it's the right response as we look at Ontario stopping them, Germany now going back to its coal plants. France has just declared, this is a huge news story, France has just declared that wind turbines are in violation of the health ordinances regarding noise, and this might affect, this is a disaster unfolding. And we wish we could spare our province and spare our taxpayers, spare the ratepayers, which are all of us, from what's going to follow by building turbines. But we're not being listened. We're not being listened to right now, and I don't want to get to the point where I say "I told you so." Schadenfreude, or whatever how you say that in German. Right. It's not a pleasant thing, and I don't want to be in that place. It's no good. But this is where we seem to be headed.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying, Mark. And we've got one chance to get this right. Yeah. Once these things are up, they're up. I've seen the reclamation site, the so-called reclamation site, Cowley Ridge. No. Once they're up, there's no going back. You can pull those things down. The land will never be the same. It's not cleaned up. It's scarred.
Yeah, it's forever, and this is the time to do it. And frankly, in my opinion, and your signal is we're losing your signal. But I'm just going to say, Angela, that we've got the premier who could get this done. We've got the premier who's got the strength to stand up to Ottawa, and we wish that she would. Well, Angela, I've just lost my signal with you. You can see her. She's not sleeping right now. So on that note, I want to thank Angela for joining me today. And I want to congratulate Angela and all of the citizens down there at the Riplinger Wind Concerns Group and the hard work you have done to get protections of the national parks, Waterton in particular, which is a gorgeous park, and you have been rewarded for your hard work. And I am so grateful to Angela, as you can see, giving her time. She's not satisfied with the results because she wants to see this whole province protected, as do I. The only way to do that is for a moratorium on industrial wind and for the province to go back to the drawing board with other renewables and other energy sources that actually make sense. I'm Mark Mallett. Thank you for watching Wind Concerns. See you again next time.